Our next presenter is David Langston, who's coming from the great state of Virginia, and he also has one other fine distinction, which is actually a plant pathologist as an IPM coordinator. So, David.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the ability and the opportunity to present here. Many of you that know me as a plant pathologist will probably question my ability as a plant pathologist, but even in my new role as IPM coordinator, I hope to do better. Like the previous presenter, I'm new to this role. Ames Herbert, who just retired, is our row crop entomologist in Virginia, and he had been IPM coordinator for several years. And once he retired, I took over that role just a few months ago. We've got a lot of project directors. Elizabeth Bush, who's here, Jeff Durr, Denny Miller, Ames Herbert, who I previously mentioned, Tom Archibald, David McCall, Mizuho Nita, Doug Pfeiffer, Mike Weaver, and Kurt Law. All these people provided information for these slides, and I certainly appreciate that. And they helped me pull this presentation together. So I'm really going to focus on 6 of the different projects that we're in. Each one of these projects has different components: agronomic crops, specialty crops, our diagnostic facilities. We have a poster actually that has our clinic information on it. If you choose to look at that. Public housing and pesticide education. A lot of the same things that you're going to see with a typical IPM, state IPM program. Starting off with the agronomic crops, we monitor for a brown marmorated stink bug, kudzu bug, and we're monitoring pyrethroid resistant Sycamore. And we have a lot of people, a lot of scouts that we basically pay, and this is what they do as part of their job. It's not their whole job, but they go around the state. We've got selected areas that they collect information, or they collect samples. They look for these pests, and in the case of the corn earworm, actually collect them, and we will test them for resistance to pyrethroids. We put all this information on our Ag Pest Advisory blog, which is what you see here, where the state map is, and this is actually something that a lot of people are able to look into and see from time to time. We put a lot of the information, all the IPM activities typically go into that pest advisory. We have promoted sampling for brown marmorated stink bug using a 2-minute visual count. In other words, how many can you see in 2 minutes? And real-time field edge only treatment. So you discovered that if you could just treat the field edge, and I don't know if you can see the picture to the right here on the edge of that soybean field, far right bottom corner. That's damage from the green healthy looking plants are the ones that have been attacked by brown marmorated stink bug, because the ones that have died off or that have senesced are the ones that have a good soybean yield. The ones that don't are still vegetatively growing at green, so we can actually spray the edge of the field and control brown marmorated stink bug because that's where they target. We published several things. I shouldn't say we, our group does. Dr. Herbert and Tom Kuhar, another entomologist, put together a publication for identifying and sampling brown marmorated stink bug. This was something that was made as a handout with a lanyard and could be passed out at different meetings. And this is something that, since I've been there, even before I was involved in the IPM program, I would see these things sitting on top of people's own different desks, and I'd go to a secretary's office and I'd see these things all over the place. So we make these things available to everybody for being able to identify brown marmorated stink bug. If you hadn't had the experience of dealing with these things, they can be quite a mess, especially in homes, but not only in homes, but also in agronomic crops. Kurt Law works with our field bug degree day alert, which is basically for orchard grass, where we have a degree day accumulation model that predicts field bug emergence, and predicts the risk of when you should be looking for and treating for field bugs in the state. And this information, once again, is made available to county agents, and we put this in our Ag Test Advisory blog as well. Western corn rootworm, this is something that we kind of just get into, where we identified a couple of places where Western corn rootworm has become resistant to BT, especially one of the proteins, BT proteins. And specifically one field that had been in continuous corn. And what we were able to do was to get the grower to be able to start rotating the soybeans, because especially these continuous corn fields, putting really high selection pressure on that technology. So we're now implementing more IPM strategies through rotation to combat this problem. Public housing, this is something that's really new to me. The IPM in public housing situations. In this particular case was what I would call a pretty cool success story, where we had our project team contact and work with a low-income elderly and disabled housing facility in Lynchburg, Virginia, that was having a problem with bed bugs. And they delivered the training, and they trained the personnel there how to identify, how to look for bed bugs, and also how to kill them. And they did these in the different housing units. And what I think is that I didn't know anything about killing bed bugs until I started reading about it. They use a heater, and they put these in a room, and they get the room they have to get every nook and cranny up to about 122 degrees, which is not good for your candles if you have those in the room. Certainly not good for an individual if you chose to sit in there and actually watch the field bugs die. But they did these clutter rankings. So if you had a real clutter group, for instance, if you went, let's say if you were trying to kill field bugs in Bob Kimrate's office, you'd have to it would take days at 122 degrees to probably get all the field bugs there. Whereas in maybe Dr. Seabold's office, it would take just a few matter of minutes. He's such an organized individual. I'm sorry. But and they use these temperature sensors placed in different areas, and I think that this is the type of training and outreach that Virginia is known for. That basically reaching out to individuals and training people how to take care of these problems themselves. Pesticide education, we've got a very active pesticide education group. We've incorporated IPM practices into all pesticide safety training educational programs, which I think is a must. We have train-the-trainer workshops with agents. We've incorporated an IPM room into the 2016 Hokie Bug Fest, where basically the entomology department puts out a big display and has all these insects for show. They've incorporated that as well. IPM practices for pollinator protection. We've got a new and a very aggressive pollinator protection initiative in Virginia, and I think a lot of states are having, especially now, more issues with pollinator protection and more things. And we've been working a lot with local growers, and we've also been working a lot with some of the, not just the growers, but extension agents and the commercial applicators to try to get everybody on the same page to protect not just solitary pollinators, but also honeybee hives. And I attended one meeting that was we had one of these meetings at my AREC, where we had about 200 people. It was a big crowd of people. We had beekeepers, and some of these meetings get pretty contentious between the beekeepers and the farmers and the commercial applicators. But I think everybody, once we broke out in individual groups and talked and understood each other, I think everybody kind of got on the same page. At least most everybody got on the same page as to what we're trying to do, and that our growers, our cotton growers, peanut growers, don't want to kill honeybees, and they're certainly aware of that situation. And if they just understood more about, where honeybee hives were, we're basically starting to locate honeybee hives using GPS coordinates, and the growers, they would know where those hives are and selectively time when they spray when they're close to those honeydew hives. Some of our recreational lands with David McCall is a plant pathologist that works with turf, and he has worked with development and delivery of a dead spot management tool for athletic fields. Dead spot is an alternaria-like organism, fungus, and he's mainly working with the turfgrass industry here at several locations across the state. He did a survey across the state at these different turf spots and found that 54 locations were positive for the Tropica species, and 37 were positive for the Picori species. And 9% had a mixed population. And one of the survey tools that he used here indicated that 100% of the respondents of the survey where they actually surveyed the turfgrass spot, so they would be willing to use site-specific IPM management strategies if they could accurately predict this dead spot. More recreational lands. We have an active turf weed group. They disseminate information on new weed species that are moving into Virginia. Most people are aware of the issues that we have with invasive species or new weed species. Educating turf managers on weed identification and management. We've established, or Keep Dirt has established demonstration plots and having these plots available for field days. People can see the effects of some of the IPM programs, the effects of different herbicides on turf weeds. And as in most cases with a lot of your programs, this information is published in trade journals and different outlets. Our Pest diagnostic facilities is the main clinic up in Blacksburg that Elizabeth and Marianne Hanson operate. All of the clinic recommendations we turn around and report on clinic samples that come in, and those have IPM-based recommendations. They also report on new diseases. If you work at a rhino disease clinic, and a lot of you do, you're always seeing new things, and they do a good job of reporting those. They've had 2 first reports come out recently. Also, a new publication has been developed through the clinic on plant injury from herbicide residue. I think this is huge because if you're a diagnostician, regardless of what makes the plant sick, you get it. So it's nutritional problems, somebody stepped on a plant, or anything. And herbicide is an awful lot, and being able to identify and understand how you get some of these herbicide residue problems carry over is really important. They received USDA certification for pathogen testing for the Phytophthora ramorum, so no death, and they have a boxwood blight task force to fight the boxwood blight across the state, which is something that I see very regularly in emails and different online communications. One of the cool things that I think has been done is one of the highlights is they're working with the Master Gardeners programs, where they actually go out and they show Master Gardeners how to identify problems, not always just diseases, but also nutritional problems and even herbicide injury. Master Gardeners that I've worked with are always very eager and receptive participants in these types of training. And from survey results, we do a good many surveys on our impacts here in there. The commercial producers agreed that the clinic services allowed a lot of things that they needed, allow me to develop more strategies, increase crop quality. One thing that I think is important is every time, if you look at this, even look at the next slide when we talk about the home gardeners, you don't always reduce pesticide inputs. But what it does tell you is how, IPM strategies help you better utilize your pesticide inputs. So it's not just necessarily reducing pesticides or reducing reliance on pesticides. It does help you time those things better and just give you more information in general. And a lot of the same information from the home growers. The home gardeners are very limited, but once again, the ones that I've worked with in the Master Gardener program have been very receptive and very engaged in these trainings. Specialty crops, we've got a lot of specialty crops, things across the state. I think the thing I'm going to focus on now is the great disease management problems. Musahoo has developed the great IPM system, which has got two major features. It predicts disease risk for a place on the map. So if you look at the map, you've got these different weather stations, and you can click on that, and it'll give you the disease risk based on the weather parameters for a given set of time for different types of diseases. So once you've done this, and you click on your spot, and then if you've got high risk of a disease, you've actually got an efficacy table here that gives you all the different fungicides that are labeled for grapes, and it tells you how well they work on different pathogens, so you can select one, and it gives you the FRAC code, the PHI, the REI, gives you a lot of good information on how to use that. And it also is really good for record keeping, because once you go through and you choose what you're going to do, and it gives you a sheet that you can print out that you can use for your pesticide records. And in the state, they started out with a small number of growers, the key 15 grape growers, and they also introduced the system to about 20 growers serve as beta testers. They're going to expand this, and so they're kind of starting out small, and this is growing. And I think it's a good program. I think it's one of the things that really implements a lot of IPM strategy, especially for selecting or only treating diseases when they need to be treated based on biology, and picking and selecting fungicides that you know are going to be active. So to wrap it up, some of the future directions, things I see that are important in my new role. We're going to maintain the current programs that I just mentioned. These are things that we're not going to stop doing something if it's successful. I think we're going to try to implement and integrate more nematode education surveys for various crops. And we've got a nematode lab in Blacksburg. We've got a new nematode lab down at Tidewater, where we've got capability to run a lot more samples, and I think we're going to use that capability to get more educational information out to the state on nematode IPM. We're going to work a lot more in herbicide-resistant crop management education, mainly with the new dicamba crops that are coming out, and those issues. We've had a lot of training this year already that was required, but we're hoping to try to bring that in and integrate that into our IPM efforts and not having a standalone thing that our lead scientists are doing. Fungicide resistance monitoring, we're starting to, as you know, we've got, and many papers here talk about fungicide resistance. I think we've done a good job of insecticide resistance monitoring in Virginia. I think fungicide resistance monitoring is something that we're going to integrate as well. And we haven't done a great job of utilizing social media as much as we could, and I've seen a lot of people that have utilized social media in different things here. I think we're going to increase what we do with social media and putting our information out there in different outlets, those specific outlets. At this time, I'm not 100% sure which ones, but I'm not sure I'm going to be tweeting pest information at 5 o'clock in the morning. But that seems to be a real popular thing of late. And with that, I appreciate your attendance and attention, and I don't know if we got any time for questions, but I'm probably going to skip out so I don't have to answer any later. But I'm kidding. But I'll be around. Thank you.